Hello, and welcome to the Community IT Innovators Technology Topics Podcast, where we discuss nonprofit technology, cybersecurity, tech project implementation, strategic planning, and nonprofit IT careers. Find us at communityit.com. Thank you for joining Community IT for this podcast, Part 1. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave us a rating to help others find this leadership resource for nonprofits. Listen for Part 2 in your podcast feed.
Welcome, everyone, to the Community IT Innovators webinar, Nonprofit Tech Roundtable. This is always one of our most popular webinars every year, and we have a panel of our senior staff here today to talk to you about essential trends in nonprofit tech and what that means for nonprofits. They're going to spend some time talking about the impact AI tools are having on our work and our sector, new cybersecurity threats and prevention, updates to Google Storage, and some considerations if you're thinking about Google Workspace or Office 365, and what best practices exist as we settle down to hybrid work. My name is Carolyn Woodard. I'm the Outreach Director for Community IT, and I'm the moderator today. And I'm very, very happy to hear from our experts. So Matt, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Great. Thanks for including me as part of this webinar. This is one of my favorite events that I get to do here at Community IT. So my name is Matthew Eshleman. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Community IT. And in my world, I get to work with organizations on their technology strategy and tech adoption. And then also I manage and support our backend team that provides our support and management to our over, 180 clients and about 7,000 endpoints. So really looking forward to the conversation with my colleagues here today.
Thanks, Matt. I'm Steve Longenecker. I'm the Director of IT Consulting at Community IT. I've been in Community IT for close to 20 years. And I manage the projects team, and Norwin and I together do the leadership of the IT business management team.
Yes, thank you, Steve. Thank you, Matt. And thank you, Carolyn. I'm Norwin Herrera. I'm the IT business manager team lead at Community. I work mostly with clients, and I hear their pain and suffering, and I try to help them every day. I have two clients that are considered large clients, over 300 staff, and one of them is here in Washington, D.C., and the other one is in San Francisco. So I'm happy to be here, and I hope this is going to become my most interesting and important webinar of the year.
Thank you so much, Norwin, for joining us. And I'm looking forward to your insight in the many clients that you and Steve work with and what we're seeing from them. By the end of this webinar, we want you to be able to discuss nonprofit tech issues, understand the current state of AI tools that will impact nonprofits in 2024. Today, we're going to start off with a poll. Is your organization using AI? I'm sorry, I did not give you an option to say no, absolutely not. We're not allowing AI, and we're turning off the tools and features as often as we can. So thanks for writing that in.
The largest plurality was, I don't think so, maybe almost half, 47%. And then using publicly available AI tools was 36%. Then the next largest was using AI enhancements available in tools we already use, like Office 365. I know Zoom has some as well. That was 30%. And then almost 10%, 9% said that they were using enterprise custom AI tools like Copilot and other paid subscription or AI-specific tools.
Great, thank you. And thanks, everyone, for sharing that with us. Okay, so we're actually going to go on to another quick poll. How many people at your organization, at your nonprofit, are using AI tools? And feel free to guesstimate. And of course, I'm sorry, I should have included 0, like we're not allowing people to use AI at your organization. For our next webinar on AI, I'll make sure to include the none of the above option.
Although, color me skeptical that you're able to keep that one person, that early adopter, out. Maybe you are.
That's true.
This is great. So for our audience today, how many people at your nonprofit are using AI tools? So again, about over half say, one person or early adopter. We've got about 40% saying half the organization is using these AI tools. And then only a small percentage, only about 5% of the respondents said that the majority, or 75 to 100% of their organization, are using these tools. I would just maybe tack on to say, this is an interesting number to get at because as we do some cybersecurity assessments, we have some insight into web traffic at the clients that we're managing. And it was really surprising to see at a client that I was doing an assessment at recently, about 90% of their endpoints were reaching out to ChatGPT. So, and I don't know that was, if we would ask their organizational leadership how many people are using AI, I think they would have been on certainly a lower number. So I would say the use of these tools is really pervasive, even if it's not officially supported by the organization.
That's a good point to make. Thank you, Matt. All right, so this is the last poll. For those of you who like polls, I'm sorry, this is the last poll. We also wanted to know, do you have AI policies at your nonprofit? And Norwin, would you mind reading the results?
Sure. Do you have AI policies? I don't think so. 55%, so it's a lot of people. And then we're in the process of creating policies, 44%. And yes, our organization has created AI acceptable use policy, and the staff understand our policy. We have a 2%, which is one person. Very interesting.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that this poll and the webinar today, like, you're in the right place. If everyone is struggling with this, and you can see how many nonprofits who answered, how many of you who answered this poll say either you don't know if you have policies or you're working on creating them to kind of catch up with all of this use of AI. So thank you all for sharing that with us. And I hope you feel like you're in the right place. Okay, so our first topic is, in fact, AI and nonprofits. So Matt, I think you are going to take the lead on kind of leading a discussion, and Steve and Norwin, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, thanks, Carolyn. And I don't know, experts on AI, I don't know that I necessarily qualify. And I think this is a really fast and rapidly changing space. It's interesting. Last year, whenever we did this, Trends webinar, one of my colleagues, I think only one of us identified AI as a big trend for 2024. And kind of here we had in the very beginning of the year with OpenAI being released and gaining 100 million user accounts in the first 2 months. I mean, the adoption is really stunning in terms of just how fast this technology has been made available to everyone, how quickly people are adopting it. And how rapidly the landscape is changing. So I went to a training led by Microsoft in December, whenever the OpenAI or Copilot was going to be released for Microsoft customers. It turned out, that was only for enterprise customers. You had to buy 300 seats, and you had to have Microsoft enterprise licensing in order to get it. And there was no timeline for when that would be made more broadly available. Well, now here we are today with the announcement that anybody with a Microsoft license, basically Office 365 account, can buy a Microsoft Copilot license for $360 for the year for a person. And so just to see that change happen over 5 weeks is pretty it's pretty striking. And, it also leads us to believe, well, what's going to happen, in the next 5 weeks. So, so this introduction of these AI powered tools that are being added into everything from, Zoom to Teams to dedicated third-party apps is really striking. And as I said, in my earlier comment, in the context of reviewing a client's web traffic for security assessment, I mean, it's really clear that staff at organizations are going to this on their own. So in the absence of really clear policy guidance that forbids access to these tools, or actually putting in blocks on your web traffic filters to block these types of applications, it's clear that folks are really relying on these tools or testing them out. And I think that that's a good thing. I think it's a new technology. It's built on the data that the systems have access to. So again, if you're just using the public, kind of free version, the content that you contribute is kind of going back into the model. The responses are going back into the model. In the Microsoft world, if you're using bing.com/chat, that's going to give you kind of an Office 365 filtered view. Again, that's kind of free. And now if you're using Copilot for Microsoft 365, then that's going to be built on the access that you as an individual have into your own Office 365 environment. So again, files, kind of anything that you have access to, your Copilot will have access to. And so I think it really comes back to, some of these fundamental things that we've talked about year over year over year, which is that good adoption policy is important, good data hygiene is important, file structure is important, permissions are really important. And so if you're looking where to start, that's a good place to start.
Matt, we have a quick question that just came in through chat, or a comment about the difference between ChatGPT and the ChatGPT that they're using, like within Microsoft.
Yeah, so the kind of regular ChatGPT, if you just kind of go to their website, you have an account, your prompts, like what you put into the prompt, and then the responses out of there is effectively public, and so those questions and then the responses go back into developing a large language model. And so again, you would obviously want to be careful about putting things that would be sensitive or maybe personally identifying in that kind of thing. So if you're maybe using it a prompt as like, hey, can you like help me write a letter to get people to click on my fundraising email, like maybe that's pretty benign and the results aren't especially unique to you or your organization. Whereas if you say, oh, this donor who gave this much money last year, help me, and this is their home address, like help me write a thank you letter to that person. Well, that's probably not the kind of thing you want to put into a public model. Then the kind of the Microsoft, and it keeps being rebranded, so I don't know that I'm going to have consistent terminology the whole time. But like the Bing Chat for Enterprise or Enterprise Chat is basically a Microsoft filtered view where where your prompts and the results that come from it just exist for that session, and they don't get added back to the model. So again, there's no kind of trail or inclusion of that data into the model, so that somebody else could potentially get information out of the model that would be informed by your questions or input.
I think that's worth highlighting right now. So yeah, I mean, I think I'm just stating what a lot of people know already, but ChatGPT is kind of the leader of the pack. It may or may not stay that way. It may not even be that way now, depending on who you ask, but it certainly has huge usage and is like maybe the place that your staff will go to by default in the absence of any other direction. And you get the sort of that same engine without the privacy risks, or less privacy risks, certainly, if you can direct your staff, if you're a Microsoft 365 customer, to use the Bing chat. And that part of Microsoft's AI services is free to Microsoft 365 customers. So that's definitely one of the starting places that we're telling our Microsoft 365 clients. Not all of our clients are Microsoft 365 clients, but those who are, we're saying, hey, at the very least, have a policy that directs your staff who want to use ChatGPT to use the Bing chat, because at least then, if they do ask for that letter to that donor, that they're that will not end up in the public domain, and that's a vital thing. And your policies that half of you are writing now, should definitely focus on hygiene and privacy concerns and being aware of all of that. So
we have had so many people asking us for for a template to create a acceptable use policy. And if you look out there, you can Google it, but there's a lot of very generic ones that don't seem very tailored to nonprofits and the nonprofit sector. So we put one together, and you all are the first that are going to be able to see it and use it. We would love feedback on it. You can download it as a Word document, so then you would be able to update it the way that you want to, with your organization name and your logo and your specific, it's just a starting point. So you'd want to make your specific policies around that. But as I said, we'd love to get your feedback on it. So please use it, see if it works. And why are policies important, guys?
I would say I think the policies are important because it really gives organizations a way to maybe level set or have a conversation around how they are using it or plan to use it. And, it helps making some, technology decisions down the road a little bit easier. I think for a lot of these tools, even though AI, I think this really is a transformative technology, the things that it is relying on are things that organizations have been, I think, talking about, and governance has been working to address for a long time. And that it's like, what information do we have? Where is it stored? Who has access to it? And the AI tools are that Microsoft specifically is making available are really reliant upon the folder structure and the permissions that are built into Office 365 and SharePoint. And so, if everybody in your organization has access to everything and there's not good data governance and, you kind of rely on security by obscurity, all of a sudden adopting a tool like, Microsoft 365 Copilot is going to surface a lot of information. And that may not be something that you want to have surfaced. I think, things like, employee job descriptions or salary ranges or all those kinds of things, that's data that an organization has. And so if you make Copilot available to everybody and somebody's able to type in a prompt like, hey, what is a salary at my company, and get other people's salary information because that information wasn't protected, I think that can be a risk. And so having a good policy foundation in place to say, how do we structure data? Where do we store it? Who has access? And then kind of carrying that through to the actual implementation and then adoption of new tools, I think is a really important process.
I want to try and bring Norwin in a little bit. Norwin, if I can ask you specifically, do you have clients, and Steve as well, you can weigh in, do you have clients who have AI policies already, or are you pretty much looking at all of your clients need to create them?
Well, basically all of them are asking for the, because some of them are already asking authorizations to install AI tools. And then the question from us is like, okay, make sure that you add at least a line or something into your acceptable use policy, that mentioned the AI thing. And that's the thing, like most of the organizations are going to try to use it before thinking about the policy. But the way it should be like, let's, make sure that we have a policy in place, and then we can start using it. That's what my recommendation will be like that. And also do other checks, you know what I mean? Like make sure that you have, for example, security awareness training, everybody on board on that. That's a must. If you're going to start using AI tools, make sure that people understand the basics of the technology they're using currently. So yes, there's people asking about, can I install this? Can I install that? Can I use this one? Our initial recommendation is make sure that we have a policy. And then second is make sure that before you allow out or authorize something, read it, make sure that you're understanding why you're authorizing it for.
It's a good point to jump in. Thank you so much, Norwin. Really great resource from the Technology Association of Grant Makers, who did a project with Project Evident, and I think a couple of other partners to develop a framework around using AI at nonprofits and foundations. And they've developed a really beautiful visual tool about the different kind of areas and issues that you should be taking into account as you're creating your policies. And of course, as the policies are helping you use these tools and use AI. And so they have these kind of 3 areas of ethical considerations, organizational considerations, and technical considerations. And I went to a presentation that they did on this, and it was very interesting. They mentioned that a lot of organizations start with the technical, like which tool do we use and which tool are we going to allow, et cetera. And they recommended taking that step back and looking at the ethical considerations and what your organization needs. Like, what's the business case for using a tool? Does it have a specific case? Like, you run an archive and you want to use AI to pull out, information from 10 years ago that's like way down in maybe, mislabeled or what have you in your archive, or do you have other use cases for it? And so to be thinking and intentional about it before it helps you, I think, develop the policies as well for it.
I was going to say, can I highlight a couple of things that have come across the chat? I wanted to quickly grab it. Maybe I'm on the same page as you. I'm not sure. So one thing that I noticed was Melissa asking a question about the scale and like the training data for nonprofits. And it's a great point, one that we did want to make today, which is that at this point in our minds, most of community IT clients are small and medium-sized nonprofits. And our understanding of the landscape is that they're going to be using general purpose AI tools, right? So when you ask your AI agent, whether it's ChatGPT or Copilot or something else, to write a contract, it's probably going to be basing its answer on zillion contracts that are on the internet, and probably a zillion contracts that were on the internet a year ago. That's going to keep getting better and better. But the day of its answer being based on the thousands or hundreds of thousands of contracts that are in your data that only you have access to is probably, first of all, a lot of us will never have the scale quite needed to achieve. So it would probably be like I don't know, I don't want to get into the engineering of it so much, but no, I don't think most nonprofits at this point are not getting their data. The AI is not being trained on their data. It's general purpose. And so you have to have your expectations set that way. It's changing so fast, though. Don't be surprised if in 3 years, Microsoft can add a layer on top that's based on just your data and only you get to access it, and it will be a nice thing. But yeah, I'm looking for, and in fact, one of our engineers in today's huddle that Matt and I were in asked, well, can my AI just watch me work for 3 weeks so that I can go away for a week and go skiing, and then the AI can cover for me? And it's like, yeah, maybe soon, but not now. The other question I wanted to point out came from Norman, which was that, since Copilot is based on ChatGPT, why would you pay for Copilot? You can just use ChatGPT. And Matt might be better, since he went to the seminar that he mentioned earlier, put on by Microsoft. But I think the idea there is that the UI is going to be really handy. You're going to be in Word, and the Copilot will be right there in Word, in Teams, and in Excel, being able to answer context-specific questions right there from the apps. Matt, do you want to say anything more than that? It is an advantage, although how much and whether it's worth $360 a year, that's not a lot of money. I bet it could be worth it pretty quickly, but your mileage may vary.
Yeah, again, this is all new, and we're still waiting to see how this is all going to be revealed. But essentially, the demos that I have seen with Copilot is that kind of app specific context, and so you can be in your Excel document and say, hey, can you help me analyze this spreadsheet and highlight the top 5 trends, or ask specific information about the data that's in your application. Whereas I think fundamentally the ChatGPT is largely a text-based tool right now in terms of, hey, can you generate a summary of this document, or can you edit this and make me sound more serious or more casual in conversation. So I think it's the productivity enhancement that's really built into the applications themselves, and then using that application, as Steve said, to analyze data that the Copilot has access to. So again, because at least in the Microsoft 365 world, the Copilot is going to have access to everything that your user account does. You could have it, analyze other documents or links that are contained, within spreadsheets. And so it has that ability to kind of navigate down through other related data elements within your organization's file structure.
Matt, if you were a small nonprofit and all of a sudden, as of like this week, you can now buy a Copilot license for some early adopters for $360 a year, and that's upfront, and it's a commitment, and it's not a ton of money. If it saves somebody 10 hours of time, it might pay for itself right there, but still, it's a bit of a risk. Let's say that you could get away with spending $1,000 right now. Who would you kind of think would be like the obviously you want to pick someone who has an aptitude and a propensity and likes new technology and really push things and find out what they can do. But I'm not sure you'd want to pick an intern, right? But at the same time, maybe not your ED, even if they. Well, I don't know. Do you have thoughts on that? Are there certain jobs that are maybe more able to be leveraged by AI than others?
Yeah, I mean, I think where a lot of this is come from, and I think unfortunately, in the corporate world, you see this, I think translating into job losses potentially. I think it's on some content creation areas. I think AI is well suited to in terms of generating content for websites, for web copy, for fundraising appeals. I think that's how Microsoft, is certainly positioning this. There are a couple of other links that Microsoft has included as kind of companion resources where you can go through and do a little bit of a self-assessment, rate your organization in terms of how mature you are in certain areas. And then, it'll kind of spit back some different things where organizations may be able to benefit the most from. So I think from what I see, there's kind of content creation and data analysis roles are really well suited for this. I think for us, looking at it from kind of a script development and kind of code quality perspective, like that's helpful. I think that's such a kind of a well-defined area, and I think AI machine learning is really good at helping augment in those areas. And my take again, I think while we see AI really is being viewed maybe as a job displacer in the enterprise, my hope is that in the nonprofit or small to mid-size, it's really a capacity builder. I think, so many nonprofit organizations are so resource constrained, they don't have enough time to get to all the things that they want to do given the resources that they have, that, hopefully, through the use of some of these tools, that all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, I have an extra hour or two to focus on this other task that's, I haven't been able to get to because I've been so busy writing this letter or analyzing the spreadsheet. And so I think, we can hopefully look in the nonprofit sector as this being a capacity enhancer, as opposed to it kind of just being a purely, kind of efficiency. We need 10 people to make these widgets. Well, now maybe we only need 8 people to make the same amount of widgets.
Thank you for joining Community IT for this podcast, Part 1. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave us a rating to help others find this leadership resource for nonprofits. Listen for Part 2 in your podcast feed. Community IT does these free webinars and podcasts for our community, and we love sharing our knowledge and experience. If you have more questions or are having trouble with your IT at your nonprofit, please get in touch with us on our website, www.communityit.com, so we can start a conversation or schedule an assessment. Downloading any of our free resources there will get you signed up for our webinar reminders, and you can attend our next webinar in real time and ask our experts your own questions. If you love podcasts, please subscribe and leave us a rating to help others find this leadership resource for nonprofits.